A few weeks ago, I posted a video power scaling Prime All Might because I was curious on how strong he actually is, and also because I thought it would be a lot of fun, and it was. The video went pretty well, and I didn't receive a lot of pushback on my interpretations or my math or assumptions, and even more than that, a lot of my values corroborated each other really well, so I felt really good about it. That being said, I did get a single pushback from a commenter, and we had a brief back and forth over some interpretations of one of my statements. To simplify, the disagreement was about when, in my video, I said that the juiced up Shigaraki was stated to be equivalent to Prime All Might, and since Shigaraki nearly died to the explosion in his battle with Star and Stripe, that we can calculate the energy of that explosion and apply it as a highball for Prime All Might strength and durability, of course assuming that strength and durability are somewhat relative or comparable. Now, the thought process itself wasn't a point of contention, but rather the fatality of Shigaraki to the explosion. I believe that was kind of an upper limit to Shigaraki's durability, and he would have died, while the commenter believed otherwise, and I just disagreed. Now, normally I would have just made a simple debunk video like some of my past videos alongside my video for the week, but college started and I'm like short on time, so let's just make this a regular video and fit it into my catalog. So that's what we're gonna do today. I want to go over their arguments and find out if Shigaraki was actually stronger than the explosion, or would he have met his match and died if he was hit. But before we begin, please make sure to like, subscribe, as that would mean a lot to me, and comment below your thoughts on which way you lean in this argument. The first argument presented forth was, how do we know Prime Shigaraki would have died to the missiles in the first place? This version of Shigaraki is clearly not the same level of strength as the one at the beginning of the final war, who is said to be equivalent to Prime All Might, right? Well, not necessarily. Remember, this version of Shigaraki was 1 day away from being complete and had access to numerous quirks. It wasn't until after his fight with Star that made his progression take a step back, as well as destroyed a vast amount of his stockpiled quirks. From this, we can draw a concise line of reasoning that this version of Shigaraki is either as strong as the beginning of the final war arc, or close enough that the possibility of both dying from a head-on collision with the missiles is equivalent. Okay, that's all fine and dandy, but what if it wasn't the explosion alone that would have killed him, but rather a combination of the lasers along with the explosion? Well, that also isn't the case. From Shigaraki's mouth himself, he mentions that this bundle of lasers is just able to hold me down and keep me from regenerating. So it doesn't really do any additive damage that his healing factor can't cancel out. This shows that the lasers just hold him at a baseline, and the missiles alone are what go beyond his standard durability, allowing him to be killed in one go. But even without all this deduction, we already know that these missiles would have killed Shigaraki because both Star and Shigaraki himself mentioned that the intention was to kill him in one go with the missiles, and that the plan Shigaraki conducted was a gamble. A gamble in this case being for his life. And I mean, just look at him. Even without being directly hit by it, look at how cooked he is here. There is just no reality that this scene was to imply that he would have withtook the energy of those missiles directly and survived. And of course, I asked the question of why would he devise such a plan if he would have tanked it in the first place? Why not just take the damage, heal, and get back in the action? And the reasons they provided were, we can't imply he almost died, and that he essentially performed the plan just because he could, just for laughs and giggles, I guess. Even though he was clearly thankful this gamble worked out, he actually wasn't worried at all, guys. Come on, are you crazy? Obviously, I found that previous line of argumentation to be ridiculous, but the next one was actually a bit more substantive. He mentions that the Nomu was alive after being a decoy, and as such the Nomu survived the explosion, and that there's no way that the Nomu is stronger than both Shigaraki and Prime All Might. And at a first glance, this is true, but when we look closer and do some analysis, we begin to find out what actually happened here. First, it is important to note that neither in the anime nor the manga do we actually directly see the Nomu getting hit directly, despite how many times they mention that we do see it. But even more than that, look at where the Nomu is located after being hit by the explosion. Do you see it? He is in the air. Now, how is he in the air if he was directly struck by the missiles? The dynamics of the problem don't make any sense. If he was to make direct contact with the missiles, the force enacted on his body would have had him follow the motion of the missiles, meaning he would be pushed downwards. Furthermore, the explosion of the missiles would have burrowed him deeper into the ground due to him being under it and the pressure waves pushing out radially. Essentially, if he did make direct contact, there is just no reality he would end up in the air above the location where he would have originally made contact with the missiles. My argument is that the Nomu jumps up as a decoy to grab their attention, to have the lasers drawn to him, so that Shigaraki could heal and burrow downwards to escape the epicenter of the explosion. The Nomu goes past the missiles, either intentionally or unintentionally, and continues in the air far enough to be further from the epicenter than Shigaraki, thereby taking less of the cumulative energy compared to Shigaraki, and ultimately ending up even further in the air than originally due to the pressure waves. Just to expand further for people who still don't understand this, the Nomu has a clear open sky and can cover much more distance without obstacles, and the missiles are moving in the opposite direction, increasing the distance between the two. On the other hand, Shigaraki is not only going in the same direction as the missiles, but he also has to burrow past the ground with his decay, allowing for much slower movement, making him closer to the epicenter, as well as the hole allowing for capture and reflection of pressure waves that would normally escape in a radial direction. Now, they never actually engaged with my line of logic, but I thought it was genius and can explain everything that was being implied in the scene by the author. But instead of engaging with this, they pitched out ideas for why the Nomu had to be hit directly, which I will now debunk. The first is that he jumps up towards it, but obviously just because you're moving in a similar direction doesn't guarantee a strike. The second reason they state is that the lasers are pointed on target, and therefore so should the missiles. The thing is, the world of MHA is significantly more technologically advanced, and this obviously includes their military application aircraft, so naturally they could have a very advanced lock-on system, which is why they aim on target. But Star is not controlling the missiles via lock-on system, but rather with New Order, and she manually changes its direction, which has no guaranteed aiming accuracy like the lasers. Not to mention, the missiles are hypersonic and contain so much force that they knock her off her footing. They also state that the Nomu was a decoy, and because it's a decoy, that it is required to eat the explosion head on, but that is also not true. The decoy was just to get the lasers off of Shigaraki so he could move and burrow in the first place. There is no indication or need for the decoy to have to take the explosion head on. If it was, it would be classified as a meat shield rather than a decoy. The only statement he ever made trying to disprove my analysis of the situation is that the manga literally states that the Nomu took more damage. So I went to the manga, and nowhere in there could I find any mention that the Nomu took more damage from the explosion than Shigaraki, so I don't know where he got this from. All of this is fine and whatever. We both had different points of view, and we both tried to substantiate it with interpretation and analysis. Of course, I do believe I did a little bit better, But I did try to be nice and invite them to have a debate about it on Discord, which they never accepted, but whatever, that's fine. I really don't care. But they did use a lot of bad faith tactics, which really annoyed the hell out of me. Saying things like, use your eyes. Anyone who watched that scene would never interpret it that way. You're coping. You're arguing based off of emotion. He even called me a liar. Well, this video is out now with all the receipts and all the examples and clips and scans, so we'll see what everyone else thinks. But that ending is more me ranting than anything else, so I'll end it there. In conclusion, based off of what was shown in the anime and manga, as well as some interpretations and analysis of positions, statements, and other things, I can confidently say that no, Shigaraki is not more durable than the missiles that were launched at him, and he would have died if it made direct contact with him. If not from interpretation, then Shigaraki's own mouth should be more than enough to suffice as evidence for this being the case. But that is all I have for today. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below what you thought of my assessment, and if you agree or disagree, as I'd love to hear it. With all that out the way, I hope y'all have a great day, and peace out.